Death in the mist. Picture yourself sinking into a plush leather seat, sipping a glass of wine just a few meters above the ground. You have no idea that, at this very moment, death is hurtling toward you at 260 kilometers per hour. You look out the window, but see nothing but a thick, milky whiteness. Suddenly, out of the fog, a massive dark shadow emerges. A roar tears through the air. Boom! In less than 2 seconds, everything you know turns to ash. How could two of the world's largest aircraft, commanded by legendary pilots, collide right on the ground? In the 1970s, the Boeing 747 was dubbed the Queen of the Skies. With 4 powerful jet engines and a capacity for hundreds of passengers, it was the ultimate symbol of safety and power. Captains of that era were like gods in the cockpit. Their word was law, and aviation technology was so trusted that people thought disasters only happened in sci-fi movies. But fate dealt a cruel hand. A bomb threat at the main airport forced all flights to divert to Los Rodeos, a small, cramped regional airport. Then, the fog rolled in. It was as thick as milk, swallowing all visibility. You could stand at the edge of the runway and not even see the nose of your own plane. Inside the KLM cockpit, time pressure began to suffocate logic. If they didn't take off immediately, they would exceed their legal flying hours and face heavy penalties. The KLM captain pushed the throttle. He believed the runway ahead was clear, but he didn't know that the Pan Am jet was still lumbering toward him, right in the middle of that very runway. Why did a legendary pilot make such an elementary mistake? The answer lies in a deadly physical phenomenon: heterodyne, signal interference. Imagine aviation radio as a narrow hallway where only one person is allowed to speak at a time. If 2 people press the talk button simultaneously, their voices collide, canceling each other out and leaving only a piercing screech. The moment KLM reported, "We are now at takeoff," air traffic control replied, "Okay. Stand by for takeoff, I will call you." At the exact same time, the Pan Am pilot shouted into his radio, "We are still taxiing on the runway." These 2 streams of sound collided. In the KLM pilot's headset, he heard only one word: "Okay." This was followed by 5 seconds of deathly silence, filled only by soulless static. That word "okay" was a death trap. It led the KLM captain to believe he was cleared to go. Imagine driving into an intersection, and the controller signals "stop," but you only hear the word "go." Added to this was the psychological barrier. The KLM co-pilot noticed something was wrong, but in the face of a legendary captain, a god in the cockpit, he hesitated to protest firmly. The silence of the subordinate combined with radio interference created a scenario with no escape. When the lights of the Pan Am appeared through the mist, the KLM was already hurtling forward with the speed of a bullet. The impact was so violent, it tore through the Pan Am's fuselage like giant scissors cutting through foil, releasing dozens of tons of fuel into a firestorm. 583 lives were lost on the Tenerife runway because of one misunderstood "okay" and a few seconds of interference. This tragedy changed the face of global aviation forever. Since then, aviation language has become bone dry and extremely strict, ensuring there will never be a second "okay" that leads to death. 4 seconds to hell. Imagine standing inside a stifling control room, surrounded by massive panels and the suffocating tick of a clock. The long hand has just struck 1:23 a.m. Your task is simple: press a red button to conclude a safety test. But the moment your fingertip touches the cold plastic surface, an earth-shattering roar shakes the ground, as if an ancient monster has just been awakened. How could a safety system turn into a weapon of destruction in just 4 seconds? In 1986, the RBMK-1000 reactor at Chernobyl was considered the pinnacle of Soviet pride. Scientists at the time claimed, "It is so safe, you could build it in the middle of Red Square." The night shift at Chernobyl were not reckless men. They were elite engineers. In their eyes, the nuclear core was a gentle giant, serving electricity to millions of homes. But that giant was actually a starving monster, chained in an obsolete cage. To perform the test, they disabled the automatic safety systems. Reactor number 4 was now like a race car with no brakes, hurtling down a cliff at terrifying speeds. When they finally realized the danger, they did what anyone would do. They pressed the emergency shutdown button, AZ5. But they had no idea that this brake was actually a secret detonator. Why did stopping the reactor cause an explosion? Imagine the reactor as a giant pressure cooker. Due to previous errors, the core had been poisoned by xenon gas, making it appear artificially weak. To save the test, the crew withdrew nearly all 211 boron control rods designed to suppress the nuclear reaction. When the AZ-5 button was pressed, these rods dropped simultaneously into the core to extinguish the reaction. However, there was a fatal design flaw. The tips of these rods were coated in graphite. Graphite does not extinguish fire. It is a powerful catalyst. In a fraction of a second, when the graphite tips touched the core, it was like pouring thousands of liters of gasoline onto a smoldering fire. Steam pressure skyrocketed to unimaginable levels, equivalent to the weight of 150 tanks pressing down on every square inch. The first steam explosion blew off the 1,000-ton reactor lid, like blowing a 10-story building into the air. An eerie blue light shot into the sky. The atmosphere was being ionized, turning the air you breathe into a deadly poison, with radiation levels 400 times that of the Hiroshima bomb. Chernobyl was not just a technical failure, it was a tragedy of arrogance and lies. The beautiful city of Pripyat suddenly became a concrete graveyard, where time stopped forever in 1986. The devil's breath. Imagine being deep in sleep after a long day's work. Suddenly, your throat burns as if you've swallowed shards of red-hot glass. You bolt upright, gasping for air, but your lungs feel like they're being filled with liquid cement, freezing and suffocating you. Outside, the entire city of Bhopal is screaming in the dark, but no one can see the enemy. Your eyes swell, aching as if someone poured acid directly into your pupils. You run into the street, but you are surrounded by a thick, white, deadly mist. Did you know that what is killing you and thousands of others started from just a few stray drops of water and a ruthless decision to save money? In the 1980s, the Union Carbide plant in Bhopal, India, was a symbol of modernity and hope. It was the crown jewel of the Green Revolution, promising to lift millions of farmers out of poverty with advanced pesticides. To locals, those towering chimneys represented jobs, progress, and prosperity. Who could have guessed that inside those shiny steel tanks, a chemical monster was being nurtured, just waiting to tear through its shell? That monster was methyl isocyanate, MIC, one of the most horrific toxins ever created by man. To save $40 a day in electricity, management turned off the refrigeration system for the MIC tanks. The flare tower designed to burn off leaking gas? Abandoned. The water curtain system to dapson leaks? Not enough pressure to reach the top. That night, a chain of clumsy maintenance errors allowed water to enter tank 610, triggering an irreversible chemical reaction. The tank began to shudder, the pressure gauge shot into the red, and then it exploded. Look at this figure. 42 tons of MIC gas escaped in just a few hours. To help you visualize, this toxic cloud was like an invisible tsunami, as tall as a 10-story building, sweeping across an area 20 times the size of a national stadium. MIC is a cunning gas. It is heavier than air. Imagine it as a white carpet of fog, gliding close to the ground, seeping through door cracks, and flooding the lungs of those sleeping. When MIC enters the body, it reacts with the water in your eyes and lungs, instantly turning into an acidic mixture that ravages tissue. Victims' lungs secrete fluid in response, causing them to literally drown on dry land. In just a few short hours, 3,800 people died instantly in contorted positions. But that was only the beginning. In the following days, the death toll surged to 16,000. Imagine a land the size of hundreds of football fields suddenly becoming a massive graveyard, where the bodies of humans and livestock lay piled upon each other under the harsh Indian sun. The Bhopal disaster was not just an industrial accident. It is a permanent scar on humanity, a reminder of the price of negligence and corporate greed. Survivors still suffer from birth defects and aggressive cancers, while the factory site remains heavily contaminated nearly 40 years later. In today's modern world, how many similar time bombs are hidden under the guise of progress? Are we breathing safe air, or are we just luckier than the people of Bhopal that night, because no one has yet pressed the cost-saving button on our lives? 22 minutes in hell. Imagine standing in the middle of the freezing North Sea, yet the air around you is melting the steel beneath your feet. The clock begins to count down. 22 minutes. That is all the time you have before Piper Alpha, a massive 34,000-ton oil rig, turns into a giant torch, incinerating all hope of survival. How could a steel empire, as solid as a fortress, be wiped out by a hole no bigger than a dinner plate? The first explosion has just rung out, and death is knocking. Will you jump into the oil-slicked, burning water from the height of a 15-story building, or stay to be roasted alive in this open-air crematorium? In 1988, Piper Alpha was more than just a rig. It was the goose that laid the golden eggs for the British oil industry, providing 10% of the entire North Sea's production. It was called the Titanic of the ocean, designed by geniuses, operated by the most seasoned experts, and protected by the world's strictest safety protocols. Yet, doomsday did not begin with an earthquake or a terrorist attack. It began with a forgotten piece of paper and a safety valve removed for maintenance. One crew removed the valve, but the next shift was never informed. A gap in the handover process, a deadly silence between two shifts, turned the backup pump system into a loaded cannon. When a primary pump failed and an engineer pressed the button to start the backup, he had no idea he was opening the gates of hell. Imagine standing in the pump room at that moment. When the button was pressed, gas didn't just leak, it screamed out with terrifying pressure. Think of it like trying to force a double-decker bus through a tiny keyhole. A small spark from an electrical short turned the entire rig into a massive reactor. At exactly 9:55 p.m. on July 6, 1988, the first explosion occurred. But here is the true tragedy. Neighboring rigs continued to pump oil and gas directly into the Piper Alpha fire because no stop order was given. Imagine trying to put out a fire by continuously pouring 5,000 liters of gasoline into it every minute. The heat was so intense that thick steel legs began to soften and melt like candle wax. Imagine 226 people trapped in a maze of fire. Most chose to wait for rescue in the canteen, following protocol. That was their death sentence. Smoke as thick as tar flooded in, stripping away oxygen and causing them to lose consciousness before the flames could even touch their skin. Only those who dared to jump into the freezing ocean stood a chance. In less than 2 hours, 30,000 tons of Piper Alpha steel vanished into the deep sea, leaving behind 167 bodies and lessons written in blood. This disaster permanently changed maritime safety standards worldwide. Today, every safety procedure at sea is built upon the ashes of those 167 souls. The silent wall. How can a dam that never broke, with not a single crack, completely erase a town from the map in less than 15 minutes? Imagine standing in the quiet darkness of the Vajont Valley, Italy, in 1963. A roar like 1,000 crashing trains tears through the night. Suddenly, the sky above you is no longer the black of mist, but a colossal wall of water 250 meters high, crashing down. You have nowhere to run, no time to scream. Why did an engineering masterpiece, a pride of humanity, turn into a scythe of death, while it remained standing like a lonely ghost amidst the ruins? In the 1960s, the Vajont Dam was a world wonder. It was the tallest arch dam on the planet, a massive concrete shield defying the laws of nature. It was hailed as a symbol of human power, a stone god that could tame the river. To the engineers and the people of Longarone below, the dam was a guardian deity, bringing electricity and prosperity. Everyone believed that as long as that concrete wall stood, they would be safe forever. It was an absolute faith in the power of mathematics and modern engineering. But here is the twist that shocked the world. The danger did not come from the water pressure pushing against the dam, but from the mountain cradling it. Mount Toc, a name that in the local dialect means the piece that breaks, began to move. Imagine an entire mountainside stealthily sliding into the reservoir by a few centimeters every day, like a monster slowly crawling into a bathtub. The engineers knew, but they were confident they could control the mountain's speed by manipulating the water levels. A horrific gamble with nature began, and the stakes were thousands of lives. On the night of October 9, 1963, that gamble ended. Visualize a massive mass of earth and rock over 2 square kilometers wide, with a volume of 260 million cubic meters, equivalent to the weight of 100 Great Pyramids of Giza, collapsing into the reservoir in just 45 seconds. As that mountain mass hit the water at 110 kilometers per hour, it created a terrifying effect, a tsunami in a bathtub. 50 million cubic meters of water were hurled into the air, forming a 250-meter wave, twice the height of the Statue of Liberty. And here is the most terrifying detail. The dam did not break. Instead of stopping the water, it acted as a giant launch pad. Imagine the top of the dam as a slide, directing that horrific flow over the crest and straight down into the valley below. This was not just pure water. It carried boulders, mud, and trees, moving with the force of an atomic bomb. As it swept through Longarone, the air pressure preceding the wave was so powerful it blew the clothes off victims and collapsed their lungs before the water even touched them. In just 15 minutes, 2,000 lives were crushed and buried under deep mud. The ultimate irony? When dawn broke, the Vajont Dam still stood there, towering and almost perfectly intact, a silent witness to the catastrophic error of its creators. The Vajont Dam still exists today, but it no longer holds a single drop of water. It stands as a monument to arrogance, a chilling reminder that no matter how great technology is, it cannot replace respect for the laws of nature. Nature never loses. It only waits for the moment to reclaim what belongs to it. Deadly fertilizer. Did you ever think that ordinary bags of fertilizer could become a mass murderer in an instant? On the morning of April 16, 1947, at the port of Texas City, an eerie orange plume of smoke rose from the hold of the SS Grand Camp. Crowds gathered on the shore, children watched, and 28 of the city's bravest firefighters rushed toward the flames. They brought hoses, faith, and courage. But what if that courage was their one-way ticket to eternity? After World War II, ammonium nitrate was the world's white gold. It was the main ingredient in fertilizer, the key to restoring global agriculture. In the eyes of the public, ammonium nitrate was as harmless as soil. You could touch it, shovel it, and even sleep next to it without worry. The sailors on the SS Grand Camp thought they were just handling a routine shipment of agricultural goods. Local firefighters believed they were facing a familiar ship fire, a basic firefighting problem they had solved hundreds of times. But deep in the ship's hold, a chemical monster was waking up. To protect the precious cargo from water damage, the captain made a fateful decision: seal the hatches and pump in steam to smother the fire. Think of this like trying to plug the mouth of an erupting volcano. The steam didn't extinguish the fire. On the contrary, it raised the internal temperature and pressure to unthinkable levels. The ammonium nitrate was no longer fertilizer. It had been activated into a massive block of high explosive, waiting for the flick of death's finger to release its energy. At exactly 9:12 a.m., the SS Grand Camp exploded. To visualize the force, it was equivalent to detonating 500 railcars full of TNT. The explosion was so violent it swatted 2 planes out of the sky like birds hit by buckshot. A 5-meter tsunami was triggered, wiping out everything in its path. Onlookers on the shore were vaporized in a microsecond. The air pressure surged so sharply it tore victims' lungs apart before they could even hear the blast. Red-hot steel fragments from the ship, weighing tons, flew at the speed of artillery shells, piercing nearby chemical and oil tanks, triggering a chain reaction that turned the entire city into a sea of fire. The shockwave was felt 160 kilometers away, and windows in Houston, 60 kilometers away, shattered into millions of needle-like pieces. 581 people died, including almost the entire Texas City Fire Department. They sacrificed themselves, never knowing what they were truly up against. The Texas City disaster is a chilling reminder of the lack of knowledge and the complacency in the face of chemical forces. Those firefighters ran toward the explosion not out of recklessness, but because they were never warned about that deadly fertilizer. The world is still full of hidden truths and stories that defy belief. If you're ready to uncover more of the most incredible and disturbing mysteries of our history, subscribe to Oddplain. Don't let the next story pass you by. Join us, and let's explore the unknown together. Thank you for watching, and stay curious. Goodbye.